In this video, I want to talk to you about bass fishing in the month of May. To me, May is truly one of the best months to go fishing. And the reason being is that you have a lot of fish that are just in a lot of different stages, and they can kind of be caught on a number of different lures. So therefore, you can kind of fish the way that you like to fish, and you can typically catch them, which makes for just a lot of fun fishing. So today I want to talk about a couple of the stages that you're going to see your bass in, whether you fish in the south, the middle of the country, the north, ponds, lakes, rivers. I'm also going to talk about a few key things that you really need to start looking for, because if you can capitalize on this, you can catch a lot of big bass in a hurry. Now, before we get into that, guys, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Finn Fishing. I have some exciting news. I just got 4 new solid color sun shirts in. A lot of you guys have been asking for just solid colors, so I went and got some. So I'm really pumped. Again, these are USA made, and right now for the month of May, I am running a special. If you buy one of the USA made sun shirts, any of them, you actually get a free Finn Fishing t-shirt. This is a tri-blend t-shirt. I'm telling you, it is the most comfortable shirt you will ever wear. If you're just lounging around the house, doing some yard work, watching football, whatever it may be, it is a great t-shirt, and you can get it 100% free with the purchase of a sun shirt. So all you got to do is add the USA made sun shirt to cart, add the t-shirt that you like to cart. I have a number of different colors, and it will automatically discount at checkout. It is the best way to help support this channel. All right, let's talk about fishing in the month of May, because like I said, this is one of my favorite months to go out. Now, in this video, I'm not gonna talk specifically about lures. I will mention a couple, but I will link a video at the end of this one that I did over on BassFishingHQ, where I really go into the lure selection and why I like certain lures. But in this video, I kind of want to go behind the scenes, tell you what the fish are doing. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm really going to start out by kind of looking at the south and working our way up north. Now, in the south, if you live down in the south, you're going to have a number of things. You're really at the very tail end of the spawn when it comes to fishing in the month of May. A lot of your fish have actually already spawned. They're really starting to push off. Now, depending on the weather, this could kind of delay that spawn. So you still may have some fish up on beds, but fish are really starting to push off. Now, when you have this happening, you're gonna have a couple of big things. One is you're gonna have a lot of the bigger female bass that are kind of starting to move out, but you do have some big female bass that are kind of still lingering around shallow water. And the reason that I think a lot of these big ones will linger in shallow water is because of the bluegill spawn. A lot of times in the month of May, you're gonna start to see a bluegill spawn develop, especially during full moons. And guys, a bluegill spawn is a beautiful thing. One, because you can see it with your own eyes. You don't need fancy electronics. A lot of times you can be going down the bank, wherever you're fishing. This could be a pond, a river, a lake, whatever it may be, and you're gonna see these honeycomb style beds. Bluegills are colonial spawners, meaning they spawn in a group. And sometimes you'll find these big patches that are, literally 100 feet worth, wide of bluegill beds. Sometimes they're just these little 10-foot sections. Now, the big thing is that you want to look for active beds, because sometimes you will see old bluegill beds that don't have actually any bluegill in them, and you want to find the ones that actually have bluegill that are spawning. Now, the bluegill have been pestering the bass during the spawn, and now it's the bass's turn to pester the bluegill. Now, the only thing about this time is it's not the babies that the bass are after. They're trying to eat the fish that are on beds. So what you will see a lot of times is these fish that are kind of just on the outskirts of a bed. So to me, one of the first things that I do when I'm fishing a bluegill bed is I'm gonna throw some sort of top water bait kind of on the outside of the bed. I like to do that first because you will pick off these active big females that are trying to feed up on bluegills to try to get their weight back, to gain some weight. That's the first thing I typically throw. The next thing I'm gonna throw a lot of times is some sort of wacky rig kind of on the outside. I don't always like to throw it right through the middle of a bed because you will get a ton of bluegill picking up that wacky rig, and it's really frustrating. And then a lot of times I will finish with some sort of glide bait of some sort on a bed. But the big thing with this is try to just fish as many of these bluegill beds. If you notice that there's a bluegill bed spawn happening, try to fish as many of them as you can in a day, because not every one of these bluegill beds, even if they are active beds, are going to be holding bass. And sometimes you'll just have 2 or 3 bass kind of lingering around these bluegill beds. And one of the best things you can do is target cover also that is really close to these beds. So if you have a bluegill bed and you have a dock, sometimes that bass is going to be sitting under that dock waiting to kind of for its opportunity to come out and get a bluegill. Maybe it's a stump close by, maybe it is a grass patch close by. But that's a great thing to look out for, something that's really, really important. The other really important bait fish spawn that we really have starting to develop in the month of May is shad. If you have gizzard shad, threadfin shad in your body of water, which you're going to have a lot of in the South, this is a magical hour, you know, is what I call it. You can have some really magical hours out there bass fishing if you are trying to find fish that are eating on these shad. Now, shad are going to spawn on hard cover. A couple of things that they really like to look for are riprap style banks or chunk rock style banks. Also, the underside of dock floats is a big thing. But I have seen shad spawn on a number of different objects. They will spawn on grass. I've even had them spawn on the side of my boat before. So guys, this is again a thing that you kind of have to cover a lot of water and realize that the shad are going to be actively spawning really early in the morning, really late in the evening. If you have a lot of cloud cover or darker color water, this can prolong this a little bit, but really you want to get there really quick in the morning to take advantage of it. When it comes to lures, I'm going to use a lot of shad imitating lures. There's a number of things you can use, like spinner baits, swim jigs, swim baits, jerk baits. There's a number of things you can do. The thing is you just got to get around shad that are spawning and bass that are eating on them, kind of like the bluegill. Sometimes you will see shad that are spawning, but there's just not bass in that area. But typically, like, you will know right away if you're around a good shad spawn, because there will be a lot of bass. They are super aggressive and you can catch them and have just an absolute ball. So that is what you're seeing a lot of start to develop in the South. And you are also starting to see there's certain bodies of water, you know, like for example, like the Tennessee River chain of lakes. Those fish, from my experience, once they spawn, they really try to get out to like shell bars in main lake structure very quickly. So a lot of times when those fish are kind of going from their beds or shallow stuff to really these main lake bars and drop-offs, man, this can be a magical time of the year for a deep diving crankbait. It seems like when those fish first get out there, that is the time when you can pick up a crankbait and you can just go to town one after another. It's one of my absolute favorite ways to fish. I love fishing a deep diving crankbait. Now let's kind of work our way up the country, kind of more to the Midwest section or the middle of the country. Now, kind of like we talked about, you're gonna still have some post-spawn fish like we just talked about, but you're also going to have a lot of fish on beds, you know, and you're also going to have those bluegill and shad spawns that I just talked about that are happening in that area. So you have a little bit of everything. You can also have some pre-spawn fish. So during kind of in the middle part of the country, you can have fish in a lot of different phases. And they can also be in a lot of different phases on the lake, on a single lake. You know, you might have parts of the lake where these fish are spawning hardcore. You're gonna have parts of the lakes where the bass are in a post-spawn kind of time. And a little bit of everything. So the thing about that is that you really just need to cover a lot of water. And you also, you need to, the best thing that I like to do is look for these signs that fish may be on a bed or off a bed or somewhere in between. And really the best way to do that is once you start catching fish, look at the fish. What does the fish look like? If you're kind of catching some skinnier fish that are a little bit beat up, you see that red bloody tail, those fish are, you might realize, hey, these fish are more in the post-spawn time. If you're catching fish that are still really fat, look like they're full of eggs, you might have fish that are more pre-spawn. So really kind of look at the fish to help you figure out what type and what phase the fish are doing or in. And the other thing that I really like to do this time of the year is fish you know, a glide bait and a bait like a pink floating worm, you know, a bubblegum floating worm. I like to fish this a lot because if fish are on beds, they will, a lot of times they're going to react to these baits. You may not always catch them on the baits, but they will come up and they will react to them. Maybe you'll see them swirl right behind them or whatever. So sometimes that can actually help you to pinpoint the beds that these fish are on. So therefore, once you kind of pinpoint the beds, then you can actually bed fish if you like to do that. Now, some of you guys don't like to bed fish. That's completely understandable. There's a lot of studies that'll show you that it doesn't really hurt the fish population. I'm actually gonna do a full video of that on the Bass Fishing HQ. But there are, I mean, it's inevitable that if you take a fish off of its bed, you are hurting that particular fish's, what should I say here? You're hurting that particular bed when it comes to the overall recruitment, but you're not really hurting the whole population. I'm gonna do a full video on it. It's just gonna help to explain it a lot better because I can't talk right now. So let's kind of work our way up to the northern part of the country. And guys, a lot of these fish are just starting to move up kind of shallow in May. I mean, there's time of the year where you're fishing in Minnesota or you're way up there and you still even have ice on your lakes come early May. And so I don't think that that is happening this year. From what I have heard, a lot of the ice, like we didn't have a harsh winter. And so therefore these fish might be further along in the process. You may have fish that are really starting to move up shallow. A lot of fish are going to be kind of in that pre-spawn to spawn phase. You may have had some fish that already spawned depending on the lakes that you are fishing, but a lot of fish are going to be kind of in the spawning zone and that pre-spawn zone. Now, anytime I have pre-spawn type fish, I love to find staging areas. I love to find staging areas. And staging areas can be a number of different things. I mean, they can be, you know, a stump that is outside of a spawning ground. They can be a grass flat or a grass patch that is outside of a spawning area. But you kind of see the pattern here. Usually, I like to look for spawning areas. I like to look for structure and cover just outside these areas where fish are going to group up before they go to spawn. And sometimes you can find a lot of fish. I just fished a lake up in Michigan a week ago, and this was the exact phase that these fish were in. They were not spawning yet. They weren't spawning. The water was like 52, 55. I found them on this grass flat and absolutely caught the fire out of them on a rattle trap, or actually a lipless crankbait. It was, man, it was a ball. It was a lot of fun. So that's kind of the things that I look for in the month of May. If you actually want to watch me fishing that lake that I just talked about in Michigan, I'm gonna leave a link for it right here, where I really go in depth and show you exactly how I go about finding fish in really towards the end of April, but the month of May. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget to check out the new sun shirts, and well, I'll see you tomorrow.